Hello, I'm Lance Spellman with Workflow Studios. We did an event in Houston earlier this week, on an XPages workshop event, and one of the people in the session had done an Excel output with an XPage, but was having trouble getting it to be recognized as Excel MIME type output when it hit the browser, so that it would load Excel and act appropriately. So I have we had done something similar to that in the past, and I just thought I'd do a quick run through of how that works. So we have an X page. I've called it Excel out. And for the content on the page, there's really nothing there. If you look at design source, it's just here's a bunch of text we don't expect to see because nothing on the X page is supposed to render. Why won't it render? Because down here in all properties, we have set the rendered value to false. So there will be no UI that gets presented to the browser from the XPage itself. Why would you do that? Well, underlying this whole XPages architecture, which is, there's JSF, the Java server faces, and then underneath that is a servlet engine. You can take advantage of that servlet engine, and down here in the after render response event of the XPage, you can put some code in there to generate output and set headers and things like that. So to do that, you would grab from the faces context, you would get the external context. From there, you would get a writer. This is similar to a print statement from JavaScript if you've done that before. Go ahead and get the servlet's response. So from the external context, we get a response. And now we're working with it just like we would in any other servlet environment. So with that response, we can set a header for the content type. In this case, we're telling it text HTML. We're setting up a header for to control caching, so that we don't want it to cache. And then we can use our server-side JavaScript to get a handle to a view. We've created a data source for a view. We get all the entries. We get a count. And we're simply going to do an export. It's a very simple example here of an HTML with a table, with a row. We put the count in there. We end the table. We end the body. Not a very exciting spreadsheet, and there are other ways that we could do this that I might cover in a later video, where we actually use the open source libraries from Apache for HSSF and POI that allow you to create, edit, modify Word content types, Word documents, Microsoft Office type documents such as Word and Excel. And literally you could, with some Java classes, write an Excel file on the fly or modify one on the fly here in the XPages code and then output it directly out to the browser. So anyway, we use the writer that we created up here to do this write, and then we end the document, and that output, and only that output, would go out to the browser. Since we want this to show up as Excel, we would turn on response and set the content type there to application Excel, which would cause it to launch the Excel application and convert that HTML table into rows and columns in Excel. Okay, so once you've done that, the question becomes, when you look at an XPage in a browser, it's going to be the path to the XPage, and then it's going to be, in this case, excelout.xsp. And even though you've set the MIME type for it to be Excel, it may not be recognized, particularly by IE6, as actually being something that it should open Excel in, to render. So there's a way you can get around that. In your internet sites docs for your server, you could set up a redirection rule, I think I've got it open here, like this one. So what we say is anything that comes in asking for an Excel file. So you would create the link in your site, to this output as an Excel file, as a something.xls. And maybe you'd probably name it something very specific. And here on the redirect, you say, well, to have that go to this Excel output or test output Excel.xsp file. And because you put that / on it on the same server, it will do an internal redirect So as far as the browser is concerned, it's still a URL that ends in .xls rather than changing the URL to a .xsp. And that will get you around that final piece of being able to have the browser think that it's actually getting an Excel file. Hope that helps.